Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting of the Harnett County Board of Commissioners regular meeting January 19th, 2021 to order, and ask Commissioner McCoy if she would have the pledge and the invocation for us tonight.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. Let us bow our heads, please. Dear Lord, we come before you tonight, thanking you for all your blessings and your mercy and grace. We ask that you continue to bless us. Bless this board, bless our country, and bless our county. Bless all of those that are serving on this board, giving their free time to be a servant for this county. Lord, I ask you to come in the midst of this meeting. Give us a clean heart and the right mind to make the right decisions for Harnett County. And Lord, I can't go without saying and asking you to forgive us all for our transgressions. This is my prayer. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Commissioner McCoy. And before we move on to item 3, thank you. For those of you listening on the phone, if you would, or virtually, if you would mute your phone so that we don't get the feedback through the microphone here, we'd appreciate it. And at the appropriate time, if you have some comments, you can unmute at that time. Thank you. Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, I got it. Yes, thank you. Item 3 it would be the consideration of any additions or deletions to the published agenda. Do I hear any at this time?
Actually, Mr. Chairman, I do have a couple. This is Coley Price, Assistant County Manager. I'm actually sitting in for Paula Stewart tonight, our County Manager. It's good to see each of y'all. For the additions, I have 2. One, if you would consider for item L, would be a budget amendment, and that is there in front of you at your table. It's funds for the Human Resource Department to contract for the countywide job description project that we've been working on for the last few months. And then item M, under consent agenda as well, is a resolution to change the meeting location of the February 1st, 2021 regular meeting and all meetings following of the Harnett County Board of Commissioners, and that meeting will be in our new building, the Resource Center and Library, which is across the street from here. Those 2 items are on the consent. I have one item that is asked to be removed, which is item 7, to be discussed at a future workshop, possibly February 9th by the Board of Commissioners, if that pleases the board. And then one item I have for clarification, Mr. Chairman, it's consent agenda item 4K. Just at the top in your packet, it was just a clerical error as far as the project ordinance. It should read Harnett Regional Jetport Master Plan Project Ordinance. It was just inadvertently left off. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Price.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I make the motion that we approve the agenda for this meeting as amended by Mr. Price.
Thank you, Commissioner Witherspoon. Commissioner Johnson, thank you for the second. Commissioner Price, how you vote? How would you vote?
Nickel.
Price, nickel. I don't know where that came from. Commissioner Johnson? Yes. Commissioner McCoy?
Yeah.
Commissioner Witherspoon?
Yes.
Chair votes aye. No wonder you looked at me funny. Okay. We move on to item 4, the consent agenda. Do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda as amended.
Thank you, Commissioner Witherspoon. Do I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner McCoy. Commissioner Nickel, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner McCoy?
Yes.
Commissioner Witherspoon?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you. That brings us to item 5, which is the period we have for informal comments from the public. Before we begin that, or before I open the floor for that, I would like to read the procedures for public comments. They are, the time limit for public comments will be limited to 30 minutes. Each person who desires to speak will be limited to 3 minutes. Any speaker, once you've spoken once on the item at hand, would not be allowed to come and speak again. If you would, please address the board from the podium if you're present, and begin remarks by stating your name and your address. Public comment is not intended as a time for the board to answer impromptu questions, but we certainly will take what you have to say and take it for information purposes as we move forward. Please maintain proper decorum. Make your comments in a civil manner. Personal attacks, any use of obscene or profane language will not be accepted. Please limit your comments to the subjects that are under the purview of this board, and not any political or other issues of which this board has no authority. At this time, I will open the floor for public comments. Do we have anyone present that would like to make a comment tonight? If you do, please approach the podium.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Elizabeth Crudup, 234 Hamilton Road, One Level, North Carolina. It's good to see everyone made it through the new year, happy and healthy. Just coming to address the board, again requesting the board to go ahead and start the process of establishing a racial equity commission. A racial equity commission is just a board of people, like the Women's Commission, that will tell the board or advise the board on what the race relations state or standing is when somebody of any race encounters the board, encounters the services of the Harnett County provides, whether it's health care, whether it's the police, whether it is going to get a permit. What are our experiences as people of all races? Right now, you do not have a measure. You think that everybody is served the same. You think that everybody is pleased. That may be true, but that may not necessarily be true. Until you guys receive the data, you will not know, and you're moving in the blind. Also, I encourage the board, as they moved so swiftly to condemn the actions in Raleigh when people were marching because they were tired of being killed and tired of being harassed and tired of being bullied by the unjust criminal system. This board made it their business to pass a resolution that condemns that. I hope they act with such swiftness and such clarity in condemning that things that went on in Washington, D.C. that have now destabilized all major cities in the United States of America, and Lillington is a county seat, and the actions in Washington of the riots now have potentially put the citizens of Harnett County in danger. It would be good if this board inquired as to how many employees of the county were present and took part in those things that went forth in Washington, D.C., because right now you do not know how many of these insurrectionists are being paid the county taxes, being paid into their salaries to go and conduct such acts of anarchy against the United States government. And I'm very sure that's not something that this board would support, being such honorable beings. You would not support that. So it would be good if you know who within your ranks was there what they did, in what capacity they participated, and how are they employed, or how do they interact, whether it's a contract or whatever, with the county, and try and see if that relationship can be severed. Because those of us who do not look like white men, those of us who are black, those of us who are women, we have to encounter these same employees in our interactions with the county. A racial equity board would have been able to analyze those numbers and give it to the board so they may continue in their business, making it fair and impartial to everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Crudup. Is there anyone else? Yes, sir.
I'd also like to, my name is Alan Longman. I'm 234 Hamilton Road, Bond Level. The reason why I'm talking today is because the Racial Equity Board is needed in most counties. The Racial Equity Task Force found out that there's just so many things going on that are wrong and need to be improved when they did their study. That one of the things they wanted to see was that the counties start being accountable, and that the citizens should know what's going on with their police force and how it's being done. And what we'd like to see is with a equity task force here that has the ability to subpoena and the ability to get information so that they can get the data together to show that you're good or bad and how we can improve it. And I believe this is necessary today, that we watch very carefully what type of people we do put into the police force, since the evidence is showing there's a lot of police and law enforcement involved in many of the hate groups and sometimes the domestic terrorists. And we have to make sure that when we have people, they represent the whole community and not just a part of it. And I wish that we formed this committee and that it has some teeth to get the information they need so they can study where we're at this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Is there anyone else? Do we have anyone joining us? Excuse me.
You're fine. Roseanne Teniente, 179 Tilden Howington Drive in Lillington. So I am here today to also address racial disparities in the county. And yesterday was Martin Luther King Day. We had a fantastic event at the courthouse. Thank you very much for allowing us use of the space, and a huge thank you to Harnett County Emergency Management who were on hand to ensure that we had a safe and a fantastic event. In the spirit of MLK, I'm going to provide you a quote. In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. And citizens in this community have been bringing you issues regarding racial disparities since the summer. We have been emailing you data. I have pamphlets full of data for you right here today. Racial disparities are an enormous problem in our community, and Breathe Harnett has started surveying folks. Today we have 46 responses, and 75% of the responses indicate that residents in Harnett County of all races feel that racism and racial disparities are a serious problem in our county. So I am going to just kindly ask you to please consider taking action, such as establishing a racial equity board, transparently releasing data to the public. Lately, I have not even been seeing COVID deaths broken down by race in the county, and I'm not quite sure why that data is being suppressed, and it's also suppressed on the statewide dashboard as well with DHHS. I would ask that you seek out or allocate funding to address these issues, including providing racial equity training and implicit bias training for employees and cultural and racial sensitivity training for employees. Seek membership in GARE, the Government Alliance on Race and Equity. And I will just conclude that anything would be better than nothing. But when board commissioners here think that it's okay to denigrate other counties for adopting resolutions condemning racism, as some of these board members did at their November work session, I don't think that's acceptable. And I don't think it's acceptable when you have so many disparities in your own county that people are facing. So I'm just going to close with that. Can I leave these with you so you can disperse these to the board members and anyone else who is interested?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else in the room? Yes, sir.
My name is Tyler Fiddle at 107 Brightwood Circle. And I'd like to say that I think it's important for the board to know, for everybody to know, for the record, that this really isn't just a small group of people that's aware of this data and these disparities and that are concerned with them. Although it may seem like a small group, it's just a small group that has the courage to really tell y'all behind the podium, this podium, but I think y'all would be surprised if you knew just how many citizens of Harnett County were aware of this data and concerned with it along, so yeah, I just feel like it's worth saying that. It may seem like a small group, but it may be more than you think. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room? Okay, do we have anybody listening online that would like to make a comment?
Yes.
Uh,
My name is Jonathan Berry. I live in Bun Level, North Carolina.
Could you repeat your name one more time, please?
Yes, my name is Jonathan Seaberry. I live in Bun Level, North Carolina.
Thank you. You may proceed. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I do apologize for taking a moment. This is my first time ever speaking to anything like this. But the things that's going on in our county as far as racism, even out in Bun Level, we have a lot of things that's going on where the community in itself has noticed the injustice, from whether it be from our hospitals, our police department, or our schools. Once today, I asked that the board really hear what the people are saying and really take into consideration what the people are saying and really do something about it. This problem has been going on way too long, and we really need, as human beings, we really need to step up and take action on it and do something to help our community become better. That's pretty much all I had to say. Thank you for hearing what I had to say.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Seaberry. We appreciate your comments. Anyone else listening online? I believe we had some email comments. Would you read those into the record, please, ma'am? Madam Clerk?
All right, this is Lindsay Lucas, Deputy Clerk. We had one comment emailed in. Okay, this is what it says. My name is Shar Martinez. Just like many other Harnett County residents, I believe that the poverty rate and racial disparities are a big problem. The data has been presented to you previously. The fact that the majority of you all don't believe there is a problem and are not taking our concerns seriously is an even bigger problem. I would love to have your input and action towards seeking solutions by a response from the questions below. 1. What are your thoughts about the poverty rate in Harnett County as well as the disparities? 2. Are you supportive of decreasing the poverty rate in Harnett County? Why or why not? 3. Are you interested in working with the community to properly pinpoint and identify the issues to find healthy, effective solutions to decrease the poverty rate as well as racial disparities? Thank you.
Thank you for reading that into the minutes. All right. At this time, we'll close our public comment session and move on to number 6 on our agenda, appointments.
Mr. Chairman, we have a number of appointments. I make a motion that we approve the following appointments and/or reappointments to the Agricultural Advisory Board. Ms. Cindy Johnson and Mr. Henry Randolph would like to be reappointed to serve on this board. The Board of Health, Harnett County Health Director recommends appointing Catherine Evans to serve on this board as the dental representative. And there is still one vacancy for a physician on this board. The Dangerous Dog Committee, Daniel Glover is interested in being reappointed to serve on this committee. Harnett County Board of Adjustment, Murray James Simpkins would like to be appointed to serve on this board as a District 5 regular member, and his application is in your package. There is a vacancy for District 5 alternate member on this board. The Harnett County Board of Equalization and Review, William Dan Andrews, is interested in serving on this board as the District 4 representative, and his application is also in your package. We still have a vacancy in District 2 as of February 28th of 2021. Brandon, the nonprofit committee, Brandon Deal is interested in being appointed to serve on this committee representing District 5, and his application is in your package. And the Southeastern Economic Development Commission, Patsy Carson would like to be appointed to serve as the private sector representative on this commission, and Commissioner Lewis Weatherspoon is interested in being appointed to serve on this commission.
Thank you, Commissioner Weatherspoon. Is that in the form of a motion?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the appointments. Commissioner Weatherspoon, I'm promoting him. And do we have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Johnson's the second. Okay, number 7, we...
Mr. Chairman, you need to take a vote on that.
I do need to take a vote. I've got sidetracked too much tonight. Commissioner Nickel, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
How about yes?
Commissioner McCoy?
Yes.
Commissioner Witherspoon?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Thank you, Mr. Snow. Number 7, we removed from the agenda for tonight. Next would be the public hearing for the proposed zoning change. Case number Plan 212-2001, landowner applicant Buckhorn Properties LLC. We have someone, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Members of the board. See this somewhere. We have one rezoning case before the board tonight, and it's a request to rezone a property from RA40 to RA30. The applicant in this case is Buckhorn Partners LLC, and the owner of record is Buckhorn Partners, and the applicant is Benton Dorr, who is in the audience tonight. The property is 20.95 acres located on Wade Stevenson Road in the Buckhorn Township. The property is mostly cleared and vacant. The intent is to develop the property for residential purposes. Surrounding land uses, there are some major subdivisions in the vicinity, as well as single-family lots as well, along with agricultural uses. Public water would be utilized. Private septic tank would be used for the septic. I want to point this out too. We don't have this up here, but the RA40, this property has RA40 to the north of it. RA30 to the north, RA20M to the east, and the property itself obviously is RA40 for the most part. So it's just a sliver of it that touches RA30 in the top, which is the requested zoning change. Staff done an evaluation on the site and found the following: that the impact of the surrounding community is reasonable, as the requested zoning district is similar in nature to the adjacent zoning districts. Number 2, that the requested zoning is compatible with the land use classification of agricultural and rural residential. These areas are typically outside of public sewer service areas and often within the water supply watershed areas. Lower density single-family residential lots greater than ½ acre are compliant with these watershed regulations. The requested rezoning to RA30 would enhance or maintain the public health, safety, and general welfare due to the existing residential uses within the area. And then last, as I mentioned, this site is adjacent to some existing RA30 zoning, and therefore the site would not need to be evaluated for small-scale rezoning for that. Having said that, the suggested statement of consistency shall read that, as stated in the evaluation, the requested rezoning to RA30 would not have an unreasonable impact on the surrounding community based on the existing residential uses. Therefore, it is recommended that this rezoning request be approved. This case was heard on January 4th by the Harnett County Planning Board, who voted 5-0 and recommended approval based on compatibility with the residential uses in the area. No one spoke in opposition at that meeting.
Thank
I'm
you.
available for any questions, and like I said, the applicant is in the audience as well, if you have any questions for that.
I believe we did get one email
We did.
closing it. I have a question about that email. The person that wrote that email said that there was a question about easement to access this property. Tell me where, because there's frontage on Wade Stevenson Road, and then there's 5 lots along Fred Burns Road that belong to the same individual that's asking for the rezoning. Why is he going to have easement?
I'm not sure, and I agree with you, Commissioner Witherspoon, that the site is located on a state road, so therefore, at least an access easement wouldn't be an issue. I mean, there could be a drainage easement, there could be a number of easements, different types of easements that could come into play, but would not come into play for rezoning, but may come into play for development down the road.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Is this the rezoning that, I got an email, and the email was saying that they had scheduled a meeting to come before the planning board, but never got the meeting. Is that the same email? Is this the same person?
I don't remember anything like that. That was a very long email, and I read it some time ago, so I can't recall exactly if it's the same email or not, but I don't remember anything, because I know that we just recently resent it out. I'm not aware of anything.
A long,
I'm
confusing
sorry, I'm
email.
looking at Commissioner Witherspoon, hoping that he would remember. He's kidding. But it was was it a long email? And it had different points
Right.
that would kind of restart each time?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably the same email. I don't remember exactly saying that he had an appointment. I want to say the way I remember it is, and this was before, I've been here 19 years, but it was before I came on staff, so so it was a long time ago that they were recalling, and I didn't have any recollection of it, of some of the things that were being said.
Okay. I just wanted to know if it was the same email, because it was a very confusing email, and
Probably was.
I think it was.
Probably was.
That's where the comments about the easement,
Yeah.
they were also in that
Yeah, there
email.
was a lot of things covered in there.
Any other commissioners have any questions? Mr. Snow, we go into a public hearing now.
That's correct.
Do I have anyone that will call the public hearing to order? Do I have anyone who would like to speak on this matter? Yes, sir.
Good evening, board members. My name is Benton Dewar. I'm a professional surveyor. I'm here. The owner couldn't come. His parents are sick, and he told me if I could come and try to answer any questions y'all might have. We've surveyed this property and had title looked at it, title search on it, and there's no easement to anybody on this through this property. There's a power line that goes through the property that serves other people, but that's going to be left as is until it's all underground, and it's going to be a couple of hours blip, and it'll all turn back to normal. So that's the only issue I know of any easements on this property. It's zoned RA40, and I don't know why. I can't, well, I work in that part of the county for 30-some years, and there's little pockets of different zoning, but it's RA20 to the east, and everything surrounding it except for one little piece is RA30. And we're requesting nothing elaborate. We just would like to be able to reduce the frontage on the lots. And that's basically the only reason we're asking for this.
Thank you, Mr. Dewar. Any
Yes, sir.
questions for anyone has for Mr. Dewar? Okay. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to address this matter? Yes, ma'am.
Probably more a question for him, but it was just a question on how many homes would be built on the lot and what would be the approximate prices of those homes.
Yeah.
Nothing is set in stone on the number of lots. It's probably 17 to 19, somewhere in that range. The rezoning would affect about 4 lots. If we have the RA 30, then that would make it to where that would be 150 feet wide as a RA 40. And that's just really not feasible if you want to do a quality development.
And the
Yeah.
average home prices?
They'll probably be in the 250 to 350 range.
So not very affordable for a lot of folks.
Well, I can't answer that question.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Okay, not hearing anyone else, we will close the public hearing on this proposed zoning change. Do I hear a motion on this request?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve this zoning, rezoning request, moving this land from RA 40 to RA 30.
Second.
Mr. Weatherspoon, could you read the state?
Consistency.
Do you have the statement of consistency?
Let's see.
The highlighted part there.
Mine's not highlighted. Which one is it? The requested rezoning of RA 30 is compatible with Harnett County regulatory documents and would not have an unreasonable impact on the surrounding community based on the existing residential uses in this area. Therefore, the Harnett County Commissioners approve this rezoning request.
I have a motion on the floor to approve the rezoning request. Do I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Nickel. Any discussion? Commissioner Nickel, how do you vote? Yes. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner McCoy?
No.
Commissioner Weatherspoon?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Motion carries. Next, we have a public hearing concerning a proposed second amendment to Economic Development Incentive Agreement, which will continue the terms of an original Economic Development Incentive Agreement entered into on May the 30th, 2014 between Harnett County and Traburn Realty. Mr. Snow, I believe you have this one.
I do have that, Your Honor. Your Honor, Mr. Chairman, I'm
that
promoting you too. You've started it tonight.
I'll accept that one too.
We'll make you the Pope before it's over with. What you should have before you in your packet is a second amendment to Economic Development Incentive Agreement. And for your purposes and the audience too, before you open the public hearing on this matter, let me give you some history on this, if I may, Mr. Chairman and members of the board.
Thank you.
Back on May 30th of 2014, Harnett County and Traburn Realty LLC entered into an Economic Development Incentive Agreement. In that agreement, Traburn purchased a 4.7 acre tract, real property tract from Harnett County for $700,000. At closing, Traburn paid $600,000 cash and signed a note for $100,000 at 5% interest, a 10-year note to the county. Subsequent to that time, they closed the deal. and pursuant to the economic development agreement, they had these requirements basically. And what it came down to was on the purchase price, that $100,000 note would be forgiven as an economic development grant as long as Traburn Realty, in this case, how it started out basically with Traburn Realty, as long as they followed certain dictates in the incentive agreement. And those dictates were as follows. Number one, they had to purchase the property and close the deal, which they did. On this particular tract, they had to construct an 8,000 square foot quick lane tire and auto center. This is the same quick lane tire and auto center that you know of here in Lillington, off the main drag going into Lillington, Highway 421, right next to the what's now Capital Ford dealership. In addition to building that quick lane tire and auto center, which has obviously been completed, they were to commence business by March of 2015. They were also to list for taxes in the first complete year, which in this case was 2016, property value of at least $1.5 million, which they did, and they were to pay taxes to the county and the town of Lillington in full for the full 10-year period. In addition to that, another main condition was they had to create 6 full-time jobs, 3 that paid 110% of the county average weekly wage, 3 which would pay at least the county average weekly wage. Then after 1 year of operation, they had to add to that 2 more additional jobs, which would total 8. And under that condition, they were 4 of the jobs had to pay 110% of the average weekly wage here in Harnett County, and 4 had to pay at least the average weekly wage. For your background purposes, back in 2012, the average weekly wage in Harnett County was $589. 110% of that would be $648. That's per week. As the incentive agreement went on, upon any failure to meet all of these requirements, then the county could call Traburn Realty in default and collect on the note, which would be for the $100,000 and any accrued interest up to at 5% up to the default date. Subsequent to that, this, as we see here, this is the second amendment. The original agreement was amended one time because they got started late as far as construction, so the start of business was amended in that first amendment from March 2015 to July 15, 2015, which they were able to comply with. They started business by that date. Now, since that time, as Angie Stewart, who is our Economic Development Director, has stated to you before in work sessions, Traburn Realty and its subsidiary, Precision Realty, complied fully with the Economic Development Incentive Agreement. Harold Nunn, who is the majority owner in both of these LLCs, subsequently, recently, had an offer to get bought out. He owned the Precision Ford dealership and the Quick Lane Tire and Auto Center through Precision Realty. And he was given an offer, or negotiated an offer through his counsel with Capital Ford of Raleigh, which we all know of just through ads and that type of thing, a very reputable institution out of the Raleigh area, where they would purchase the Precision Ford dealership and the Quick Lane Tire and Auto Center, basically. At that time, obviously, we still had a first deed of trust which secured our note. So negotiations started at that time where Mr. Nunn wanted to possibly try to buy out the note or whatever so he could conclude with his deal. Your previous Board of Commissioners last year before the election, basically in those negotiations, didn't want to do that, didn't want to let him buy out, and basically just said, look, we'd rather you or your successors in interest comply with the original agreement. Just keep the jobs going, keep the operations going, keep paying your taxes. And if you last till the maturity date of June 26, 2024, then the grant will be granted and you'll have no obligations. So what Mr. Nunn has proposed based on the county's response at that time is this second amendment that you have in front of you. And what the second amendment basically does is this. It just says he can go through with his sale to Capital Ford as long as all the conditions of the original incentive agreement are complied with. Obviously, the initial investment in the building of the Quick Lane Tire and Auto Center is all done, but this includes the predominant continuing obligations, which is mainly the maintenance of the jobs at the wage rates as stated in the agreement, the continued payment of taxes in a timely manner, and just obviously the continued operation of the business. Now, to ensure that the county would be double secured on this, once his deal with Capital Ford went through, the first deed of trust is still on record, so we still have a first deed of trust on that property, so we're protected there. But Mr. Nunn and his counsel wanted to go further, and what they did when they negotiated this deal with Capital Ford, they entered into a holdback escrow agreement. And what they did there, in a worst-case scenario in default, the county would be owed the $100,000 plus 5% interest over 10 years, which obviously would be $150,000. That would be the max. So what they did, they deposited $150,000 with a title insurance company, First American Title Insurance Company. That company still has that money in its coffers. And basically the agreement says if any of these conditions aren't met up until the maturity date of June 26, 2024, then all the county has to do is let the parties know that they're in default. And if Mr. Nunn, through his companies, can't cure that default, then basically we make the demand and then First American Title turns the money over to us. So we got that security. We got the previous security as far as the first deed of trust. So everything is there. So what Mr. Nunn is proposing is, look, let everything just go through like regular. The only change is instead of Precision Realty and Traben Realty owning the property and operating, now you got Capital Ford doing it. Capital Ford has agreed to continue to give the county economic development department the information it needs to comply with the EDIA requirements, especially as far as the 8 jobs and the wage requirements. And they just said let it keep rolling until June of 2024. And then if they met all their obligations, we would forgive that note in the form of a grant. And that's basically what the Second Amendment would do. Mr. Nunn wanted to be here tonight, but he had some other obligations that he had to adhere to. His counsel, who is Sid Aldridge, his Raleigh lawyer, is here, and he's here to answer any questions you might have or to present anything further than I've already presented. Anything you need to say, Sid? No, I think you very articulately outlined the history and what's in place, and the money is with First American. If there's any default, First American would pay the county.
Thank you. Any questions any commissioners have? Okay. Well, at this time, we will open the floor to public hearing to hear any comments regarding this matter.
I'm just going to mention real quick, Capital Ford is a huge, huge company. And I was wondering if somewhere in that agreement, the way you're forgiving the $100,000, you'd include a diversity in employment requirement. That would, and give an incentive of forgiving that grant, forgiving that $100,000 a little earlier for that. Because right now, I'm very sure the people who work out there are not of diverse employment. It will be good news for everybody should Capital Ford decide to come into town.
Thank you, Mr. President. Anyone else have any comments? At this time, we will close the public hearing, and the board will consider the approval of the Second Amendment to the Economic Development Incentive Agreement, subject to any restrictions and conditions mandated by NC General Statutes 158-7.1. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the request based off of, what were the names again?
As stated by Mr. Snow.
As stated by Mr. Snow.
Second. I second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Nichol. Thank you, Commissioner Witherspoon, for the second. Any discussion?
Only discussion I have is that it seems that Capital Ford is fulfilling the first agreement that we have. We're not losing anything, and we're going to if anything happens as far as the closure of it, we will recuperate our money from the first agreement. So my vote would be yes.
All right, thank you, Mr. McCoy. Mr. Nichol, how would you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Witherspoon?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Motion passed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight.
Very much.
Next, we will have a presentation of the 2021 Bicycle Pedestrian and Greenway Plan.
Mr. Chairman, this is Coley Price. I think Mr. Davis, Carl Davis, our Parks and Rec Director, is on the phone, and he's going to introduce Jason Reyes with Alta Planning. This is something we've been working on for quite some time. Very excited about the presentation coming to the Board of Commissioners for your recommendation tonight. So, Carl, if you're there, I'll let you do the introduction.
Good evening, Commissioners. So over the past 10 years or so, there have been mentions of greenway trails and alternative transportation options been into multiple planning documents within the county. Harnett County has also been a part of regional and state plans that loosely show future trails, paths, and sidewalks. All of these plans documented our need for trails and that our citizens want them. But there's also a lot of similarity between the plans in reference to greenways, but most of them had slight variations to those trails. As the push for construction of greenways from the public continued to grow, the county began to look into funding sources outside of the county funds. And what became obvious to our county staff is that we needed a standalone plan that verified and validated these other plans. So in October of 2019, county staff from the manager's office, development services, and Parks and Recreation began to meet and discuss our next steps. We were lucky to have some contacts of well-known greenway planners and advocates that consulted with us and led us to the decision to move forward with an RFP for the Bicycle Pedestrian Greenway Plan. From those proposals, we selected Alta Planning and Design to develop the plan. Alta had a good relationship with the county and was familiar with what we were doing, and they had worked on several plans that included the county, as well as developing plans for organizations similar to us. Obviously, we had several challenges in 2020, COVID, trying to do this thing through virtual meetings, and had lots of communication with Alta throughout that time. But tonight, we're excited that we have a final plan to present to you that Alta's come up with, and we're thankful for you all for allowing Alta to present tonight, and thankful for Alta for making these special arrangements to speak to you. So I want to introduce Jason Reyes with Alta Planning and Design and turn it over to him for the presentation.
Thank you very much, Carl. And before I get started, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. And I've got the slides up right now, and what I'm going to do is I'd just like to walk through a little bit of the project background, the process, how we got here, and then talk about the key components of the plan, and then some of the top projects and next steps. But before I dive into all that, I just wanted to say a special thank you to the commissioners for hearing this tonight, but also to Carl Davis, Jay Sykes, the whole project team with Mark and Coley and Brian. Been doing this work across the state for the last 15 years in different communities, and this team that you've got is really tight, really good group of people, very responsive. They ask great questions, and just really good to work with. So wanted to say that, and then just dive into, why we're doing this plan. And I know that Carl talked about that a little bit already, but just to reiterate, we are seeing, just the increase in desire for parks and trails across the country, in North Carolina as well, even right down the river, or right up the river, I should say, over at Raven Rock State Park. You can see just the overcrowding they're experiencing there, and the need to, have more opportunities for the public basically to get outside, walk, bike, and exercise and be in nature. And so providing these opportunities and infrastructure for more outdoor recreation is very important in that respect. And if you look across the country, in 2020, the spikes in, we've seen them up to 3 times what they were in previous years, just with the amount of people needing to have this opportunity to be outside. And it's really having a good, positive economic impact on some of these communities as well. And it's not just up and down, the big cities It's also in some smaller communities too. This is a quote here, and some data from a community similar in size to Harnett County, down in the southwest portion of the state. But you can see they've had counters out on their trails, and they've had some of the busiest trail use they've ever seen. Another reason to do this is looking at the economic benefits of greenways and trails, and we've seen that across the state. There's a study at this link here that you can see from NCDOT that looked at 4 different types of greenway trails across North Carolina that are already built, and they counted people along those trails and interviewed users about their spending habits and trips related to the trail use, and we're able to look at that overall $27 million investment across those 4 built greenway systems, and then look at annually what kind of return on investment are they getting every year on that. And so they found that every dollar they're putting into it, they're getting 1.72 annually back in return on these various items. And so the economic benefits is a big deal, but certainly the recreation aspects and other health benefits that we just mentioned as well. But bringing it back to Harnett County, our process, as Carl was saying, we started up early part of this year, and then finally got rolling after adjusting COVID and everything like that, with our project startup in June, and then dove into some data collection, developed a draft plan, and we now have a final plan. And I'm going to walk you through some of that process and some of those things that, some of those highlights along the way too. But the project team overall, we had a huge steering committee, and it's not just people from the county. It's we have representatives from the municipalities, from the regional planning and transportation organizations. We've had some from conservation groups and from universities settings and others. So I think it was just good to have that sort of wide representation, and you have a larger group of people that are potentially interested in helping implement the plan as well. So on the project website, you can go there and you can see we have people visiting throughout the planning process and sharing information. We had a public survey with over 850 participants, and overwhelmingly very supportive of the project overall. Some of the key takeaways for top destinations, they were wanting to connect trails to parks, to Cape Fear River, to Raven Rock State Park. The top pick for a new trail section was from Raven Rock State Park to Lillington. And then we also heard that people wanted a variety of different trail types, paved trails and natural surface, zone, et cetera. The plan itself and the survey that is summarized in there has over 100 open-ended comments and ideas submitted by the public. These are just a handful of those, but every one of them is in the plan. And the overwhelming majority of them are very positive, very good. Of course, it's not for everybody. Not everybody, necessarily wants trails as their top priority for the community, but the overwhelming majority of responses were very supportive, like you see here. When we did our public webinars, we had about 50 participants, and if you can picture 50 people in one room, that's actually not too bad for a Greenway and Trail meeting. It was virtual, but we still had some interactive aspects of the meetings where we got to poll people on their preferences for different trails and things like that. And these were some of the comments we received towards the end of that presentation when we asked them about how they liked the draft plan. So, diving into that actual draft plan and is the next part of this. And this is actually, more or less the same series of slides and from the plan that we shared with the public. We had some minor updates here and there from regional planning organization comments and other things that just wanted them to align with your existing plans really well. And so we took care of those. But you can see how it's set up here. We've got introduction. We have a health and economic impact examples, recommendations, and a lot of information on implementation as well. So one of the first things we did when we started the plan was we looked at all the existing work that's out there today, not just from Harnett County, but from throughout the region that could be relevant to this plan. And we pulled out and extracted all those recommendations, put them on a map so that we could see all the ideas that are currently out there, And then you can see one of our challenges with this plan was not necessarily to come up with new recommendations, but to really narrow down and figure out, okay, well, what is feasible with all this stuff, and what can we actually go out and pursue as a plan of action? And so that's what we did. And we didn't just look at what was going on in Harnett County again. We did look at some other case studies of where these trails have already been built and what kind of health and economic impact they're having on those communities. And so we have that information in there in the second chapter. And the third chapter gets into the recommendations, and you can see across the top of this slide some of the key inputs that we used as the basis of our recommendations from the committee and the public, from our mapping and previous plans. And all that goes in to create an overall spine network of potential trails. We developed some trail cross sections, and then we have some project sheets for each one of them. So the first slide that you see here with a map on it of recommendations, this is just a concept map. We try to draw it as simply as possible just to get the big ideas. Lillington in the center here, connecting over to Raven Rock, connecting north towards Angier, connecting to Campbell and Coates, down in Irwin, down to Fort Bragg and the southwest part of the county, up through some county parks and back to Raven Rock. So that's a big picture. And the next thing we did was we sort of refined that a little bit. And so we went in and looked at different trail types that could happen along those corridors. And then we looked more specifically at each one of these segments. So that's what you'll see on the next slides here in a little bit. But before we get into that, you can see some of the example trail types. This would be a shared use path, very common type of greenway system. You can see this one was the same thing, but next to a roadway, right-of-way and corridor. And then we have other opportunities where you might have a natural surface, more in a natural environment. So I'm not going to get into the details of each one of these, but I do want to just highlight some things so that you, when you're looking at the plan in the future, you know what's in there and where to find it. So like I said, for each one of these trail segments, we sort of zoomed in a little bit closer, looked at what was on some of the existing plans. For example, Lillington had just recently adopted their plan, so we aligned our recommendations with theirs within Lillington. And then you can see heading west out of Lillington, taking advantage of the former rail bed up to South River Road and Jim Christensen Road. And then that could bring you to a potential side path into Raven Rock State Park. And so that could be, you know, this is what the public said is what they wanted as one of their top projects. So this is what we focused on for a lot of our work. But I want to just hit some highlights of some other ones as well. So Lillington to Coates. This would be a potential either Riverside Trail or Side Path Trail into Campbell University. We did talk to Campbell University quite a bit during the process, and they were very interested in this. Same with Coates and connecting over to Coates. And then from Coates to the Dunn-Irwin Trail. And then from Coates up to Angier. And then this one, the north arrow is actually to the right. So you've got Raven Rock State Park here, and then heading north from Raven Rock State Park towards the future 751 extension, there is an opportunity there along Hector Creek for a more natural surface trail, especially if you partner with, you know, conservation groups and other, you know, future projects out in that direction. In the southwest part of the county, we got a lot of interest from the public survey on having something out in the southwest portion of the county, especially around the subdivisions. And so this shows an opportunity potentially using some sewer corridors and other connections to connect Anderson Creek Park down to some of the elementary and middle school connections, and further south potentially to Fort Bragg and then All-American Trail. And then finally, this recommendation is for a bike route. This would be on street with a paved shoulder like you see here. And in yellow are some of the calmer roads where this could happen, and red are a little bit busier where you might need some more separation and buffer from automobile traffic. So that gives you a summary of the actual plan itself. Some of the next steps are the actual plan adoption, and then a phased approach to implementation. So I just want to hit a couple slides on that and just one more minute. So the overall priority project list, we took each one of those segments that we talked about and we put some check marks next to some things that it either connects to or is in an adopted plan, if there's a safety element that it supports, the public feedback and stakeholder feedback. We also have cost estimates in there too. So this just gives a little bit of a big picture in terms of what kinds of things that fulfill in terms of greenway planning and prioritization. And then we draw upon all these past planning efforts so that you have those to cite and to point back to when you're applying for funding. And then also a planning estimate that shows in detail, what's included in that estimated cost and what's not. The plan also includes I know you can't read all this, so sorry, I'm kind of flipping through, but just wanted you to know that the plan also includes information about funding sources that are out there and which trail segments could potentially apply for which funding sources. So again, it's a long-term plan, but there are some short-term next steps that can be achieved. And so that's what that implementation chapter takes a look at, is what are the things you can do on the different trail segments to get out there and start making some progress. Lastly, we're not, it's not Harnett County isn't doing this alone. There are a lot of regional partners out there that can help. And so there's a lot of things to consider along those lines of how to pursue that. And I just wanted to mention, one example in Wake County, they adopted their Greenway plan. They have their priority projects they're going after. And they were able to, with the help of the County Board of Commissioners and Sig Hutchinson in particular, were able to leverage a bond referendum, and that passed with 68% of the vote for open space, parks, and greenways. Not saying that Harnett County has to go that route, but it's just one thing to consider is just that, the more leadership on your part, the faster this thing could probably move along. And then I'll just end with this, that, I think it's a very positive thing for the county overall. It is a long-term plan, but what adopting the plan does is it gives you a vision and a plan of action, that opens you up for more funding opportunities going forward. So I think with that, I will end it and see if Carl has anything he wants to add or if there are any questions I could take from the commission.
Anyone have any questions? I don't see anyone having any questions. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Carl, I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, thank you, Jason, for doing that, and thank you, board, for listening to us. I think just at this point, if the board is willing to, myself, Parks and Recreation Department, and Development Services ask for you guys to adopt this plan and to let us start working on that implementation.
Thank you, Carl. Commissioners, you heard the request by Mr. Davis for adoption of the 2021 Harnett County Bicycle Pedestrian and Greenway Plan. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the request of the adoption of the 2021 Harnett County Bicycle and Pedestrian Greenway Plan.
Thank you, Mr. Nickel. Do I hear a second?
Johnson, second.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Any discussion?
I just wanted to add that I worked on this a little bit with this group. At first, I was a little hesitant. I was like, "Oh my goodness!" Like trying to see what was going on, where they were trying to take it. From what I understand, is that there are grants and other fundings that we can start taking advantage of, starting to link some of these communities together with the bike paths and the different parks. I really think is going to be a benefit to the county. It'll be definitely something that'll make Harnett County more attractive, whether it's those moving here to either work or just like going to school. It'll just be another added benefit, I think, for that and make us more appealing. So,
Thank you, Mr. Nickel.
I'd like to say that the economic capital return on dollars spent on this project appears to be excellent.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anyone else?
I was interested in the bike path. They're gonna have one in Littleton, going out of Littleton to where? Is that the one going to the Raven Rock?
The first leg, from what I believe is Commissioner Nickel, the first leg, and I know that Carl can touch base and be a little more accurate, but I believe the first leg that they're looking at doing is from Raven Rock to Lillington, and then also the town of Lillington to another area. So,
Is it
Looking at Campbell.
Campbell.
Yeah. And each town, if I may, each town has somewhat adopted their bicycle and pedestrian plans, so we blended that back into it to answer your question. I know Lillington has adopted theirs, and that's something that we work hand in hand on with each municipality to make sure that connectivity is there. So as Commissioner Nickel mentioned, there is funding opportunities. I've had the pleasure of sitting on the Triangle Trails Initiative Board for the past year. That's something Harnett County did, passed a resolution, and the contacts and relationships are just immeasurable as far as what we could do to help put this together. And like Wade County being our neighbor to the north, they have done it's probably one of the best greenway trails on the East Coast. So we can learn a lot from them and take, the steps that they took as far as putting this in place for funding. So thank you for those comments.
Thank you.
This is just another, this is Commissioner Weatherspoon. This is just another item that companies look at when they're thinking about relocating. Right now, there's a lot of companies up in the Northeast that are looking to relocate to various states. They don't have these greenways and walking trails in New Jersey or some of the other northeastern states. So this is an economic development item also, not just, we're not just going out there and building trails and for people to, have a good time on. This is going to play into our economic development strategy.
I'm aware of that. I mean, on the previous board, we had discussed this very thoroughly. And I'm aware that greenway paths are being developed from the top of the map all the way down to the bottom of the map. So I'm very pleased to know that we fit into it because it is part of economic development growth. Because when we have citizens come into the state of North Carolina, they're coming here because we provide family recreation for them as well as other securities. So that was the reason I asked the question.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Any further questions or discussion? Thank you, Commissioners, for your comments. Mr. Nickel, how do you vote?
yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McCoy?
Yes.
Mr. Weatherspoon?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Mr. Davis, let me take a little personal privilege here. Just thank you and your team for the years of work that you have put into developing this. I know that you've been at it a long time. We appreciate your persistence and your dedication to our county and especially the Recreation Department that you lead.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, we will move on to the county manager's report.
Okay. I think I may have John Rouse or Larry, or they are in the back. I didn't see you. I want to come up and start a report on COVID update. Snuck in the back, didn't you?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hey, John.
I'll give you, you see our daily reports. We've had today 7,389 confirmed cases. We currently have 1,781 active cases. We have had 105 deaths in the county. Our total cases since back right before Thanksgiving, right around Veterans Day, we were averaging somewhere around 180 cases a week. From Thanksgiving to now, that number has doubled. We jumped up to right around 300 right after Thanksgiving. Through December, we had several weeks, we had over 500. And the week of New Year's, we had 560. Last week, we were down back to around 383. So hopefully, we're starting to see a downtrend in the number of cases. Testing in the county since last February, we've tested about 75,000 people. I don't mean the health department, but in the county, there have been about 75,000 people that have been tested. I'm currently working with the state and a private vendor that's wanting to set up a testing site, one over here at the Brightwater Complex and another one in Dunn, trying to get a little pressure off of the hospital EDs. They're still having a lot of people that go to the emergency room wanting to be tested. So, let's see, vaccinations. We got our vaccine in the day before Christmas, and we started vaccinating that week right after Christmas. That week and the week after, we concentrated on our staff and then healthcare staff and providers that would come in. The hospital concentrated on actual practices. We were picking up solo practitioners that may be switching, going from hospital travel staff, that type of thing. So we concentrated on those. First of last week, we started vaccinating. We were focusing on 75 and older, plus any healthcare workers we could still get. And then at the end of the week, it was lowered to 65 and older. But through today, we've done about 1,636 vaccinations. The rest of the week through Monday, we've got about 1,200 more scheduled. We're just about booked through next Monday on giving vaccinations. We didn't get any vaccine this week. I'm hoping we will get some. We'll be notified at the end of the week we're going to get some more vaccine next week. Supply trains are just kind of, you see this sometimes with these new vaccines. You get a shipment early and then it kind of tails off. But just to give you some idea of what we're dealing with, on a weekly basis, we typically will deal with about 2,000 to 2,500 calls a week. Last week, my main line got over 7,500 calls. We've established a COVID vaccine line. That line got almost 12,500 calls. I've got 6 of my staff that are trying to schedule people. The county's let me have 6 additional staff that were doing nothing but scheduling people. I've got the state entered a contract with Community Care of North Carolina. I've been using 22 of their staff to do my contact tracing and case investigation last spring, summer, and fall. We're getting ready to cannibalize those people and turn them in to help us with vaccinations and scheduling. I'm going to probably take 7 of those. So I'm going to have about 19 people that are doing nothing but trying to schedule and return calls and return emails to folks. So, we hear a lot about folks say, I called you, I left a message. Trying to go through about 20,000 calls a week. Just share that message if you would, and we'll get there. Hopefully with this staff we're going to add tomorrow, that will help us go ahead and chip away at that. We're vaccinating over at the Commons. We're capable to do about 300 a day when we're there. We're looking at, when this building is vacated, maybe turning this into a secondary site and vaccinating out of this building also. And I think we can probably do about 300 again out of this building. So that's kind of a brief overview. Any questions or?
Yes. Where are your locations at?
For vaccinating?
Correct.
We're vaccinating over at the Commons.
Okay, and that's it?
That's it. Reason being, you have to wait 15 minutes or 30 minutes if you have any problems with this vaccine. I've got what I need there at the health department to respond to a reaction. I don't have it if I go out and do like I do with flu shots and go place to place. We have talked with the school system, and we've talked with Larry and the hospital in Campbell about maybe looking at doing something at some of the big high schools where we could go and set up. The problem with doing that now is people would have to stay in their cars, but I don't have a facility that I can put out there for my staff to get out of the elements. So they'd be stuck in the elements, if we did a drive-through kind of thing at the at the schools. Campbell has got some big tents that you can almost drive through. But at least they've got some tents big enough that you can heat and cool them. So we're talking to them about, trying to work together and do something in the future for that. But right now, when we're going into Commons, we can get people inside. They're not standing outside. We do it by appointment, so they're not lined up. They come in and, they wait their 15 minutes, and then they're able to leave. 1st of February, we will start doing the second dose. So we'll have all the ones we've done this month, we're going to have to turn around and do them, plus continue to give the first dose to folks that want it.
Well, I know that you guys are definitely stretched thin, but if there's anything we can do to get a site down on the western side, maybe Old Benhaven or something, I mean, that's a far trek for people down our area, so just a thought.
John, I have a question for people listening. What are the qualifications for coming on site and getting your vaccination?
Say that again.
What are the requirements for coming on site and getting your vaccination? Is 65 and over?
It's 65 and older. We're still doing some healthcare workers, and we got some essential, like we did a food processing plant. They had some workers that needed to be vaccinated. They were in that group. So it's 65 and older, and like I say, that's mainly who we're getting contact from. We're still getting the occasional healthcare worker that had been out and couldn't get it or whatnot and call us.
But people don't understand they can just show up with an ID saying they're 65 and older?
Well, we're not checking IDs. Now, we do. When you go online, we have got it where you can go in now and we ask your age, and so there's a drop-down box that you can go on and click. So we get it when they say they're 65 and older. We're getting a phone number and an email message from them.
And I had a question. Is this open to Harnett County residents only?
No, we have to vaccinate anybody. It's a federal vaccine, and the feds told the state anybody that comes in has to be vaccinated. I know we did, and so did the hospital. We had a provider from Charlotte that wasn't able to get the vaccine over in that area. And one called Harnett Health and got theirs, and one called us and came and got ours.
Yeah, I had a question asked of me a few days ago. Is this for North Carolina residents only, because they were saying people from out of state are coming in and taking advantage of it?
No, if you got, and I know some of the especially the border counties that border, other states, they're having an issue with other people from other states coming in, and no, it's whoever you have to vaccinate, whoever comes in.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Rouse? John, we appreciate it. We know it's you've got a big task at hand. I will say that feedback I've received from those who've shown up in that age group to get their vaccination has talked about how wonderful it went. No waiting around. Staff very professional, very cordial, very accommodating. So we do appreciate that. Thank you.
We appreciate it.
I can attest to that. My wife and I did our first shot this past Friday, and I mean, it went like silk. It was, and it doesn't hurt, okay? I didn't even know the girl would give me the shot until she was putting the Band-Aid on. And people talk about being sore the next day. My wife was a little bit sore, her right arm, but I did it in my left arm, and I didn't feel anything.
Biggest thing I've heard is a little bit of soreness at the injection site. And we heard that with flu this year. And then like fatigue, 24, 36 hours afterwards. That's the biggest complaint that I've heard.
I had a special meeting.
Thank you.
Good evening. Just to follow up with John, to help John's folks out, my EMS personnel, my supervisors in particular, are actually doing the vaccinations for all of our emergency responders, EMS, fire, law enforcement, and they've been actually going out to the departments, and we've had some folks coming into us. And actually, my supervisor on duty right now is over at our building taking care of some law enforcement folks, getting that done. We're also sending a couple people to the Commons area where we can assist those folks for that, so they're aiding that process too. We're looking at probably wrapping up our emergency responders Saturday or Sunday. We've got a few stragglers, and we're just trying to get them in that still want the shot. We're keeping the wheels turning still. With the COVID positivity, we're up a few numbers one day and down another, but we've never shut a unit down in this whole time. So we've been able to keep that going. And our folks, I can't say enough about our team and the teamwork with the health department. This has been for such a bad situation. The overall response to this from the county folks, everything from the board on down has been really good, and we appreciate that. And we're going to push forward. My guys on the EM side of the house, my emergency managers, are actually working on a couple school sites, coming up with a contingency plan if we have to use those, working with some folks and look at the logistical end of it. So we'll probably have something on paper by the end of the week as far as if we have to implement a program like that.
Any comments for Mr. Smith? I think there's a question in the back there.
Yeah, I do. How for, you have at Campbell, you have medical students and stuff like that at that facility. How much of them are you planning to use as interns or get them to be working with you so that you have the personnel that you need? Or can you work something out?
We've talked to them. There's something they want to do with doing some injections. They hadn't given us a number yet. They do have some. They helped us with testing this past fall, and all went into some long-term care facilities for us and did testing.
Well, they're supposed to do community service part of the degree as well. But I'm saying if you can arrange something that is beneficial for the student to learn, an internship, you would have them work for you, probably get grant money for that, but you would have more people working with you and taking care of this problem now if you utilize that facility. And if you put it to them that way, that you're going to bring the support, grants, and whatever is necessary to get them to help you work, I think you have a much larger number of people than what you're doing right now, especially if you make it a need. It is a Christian facility, and therefore I believe that if you show them that there's a need to save lives, I think the people there, and you make it understanding to them that you have a crisis now, and that you have people that can be training for the crisis in their fields, and have them work for you. You do all this for them, and then what they get out of it is a lot of help for you, and that will get you so that you have more personnel medically there to help you.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Sorry, just real quick to piggyback off of more personnel, because I think that's what I heard, that you guys, you're doing your best, but you need people. And the pediatric community in North Carolina, we have been yelling and saying, they're the one section set up and ready to go and familiar with vaccinations. They give vaccinations all day long. Please reach out to them. Many of the health departments like yours have not taken advantage of that. They will be ready to mobilize if approached, but there's no one is approaching them. The pediatricians, their nursing staff, their med techs, all of them are expert vaccination givers, and it will help increase your numbers for daily vaccination and increase the number of appointments you can take. And they already set up in offices that are COVID ready, COVID social distancing and all that ready. They're ready, they're there. Let's not ignore them and overwork one section, because the staff you have very soon, they will burn out as much as they really stress them. And we've seen what it looks like in terms of population in Harnett County. There will be burnout in your staffing, you know. The pediatricians are there. They are medically board certified. They have staffing already trained. They have COVID social distance set up. Use them, you know.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate all your hard work and dedication to what you do with your staff, and I appreciate the efforts every day. Okay. All right. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the only other thing I have is just please be aware of your planning retreat, which is Tuesday week, the 26th of January. It will be here in this room. It will start at 9 a.m. and just be prepared to go to about 3:30. So that'll be for the planning retreat for the year. So that will not be open to the public, but Lindsay, I believe it will be available, obviously by phone, if somebody wants to listen in to that. So I just want to make you aware, and you have all the other information in your packet with your upcoming dates, and that's all I have this evening.
Can we change the planning retreat to a different name? Because every time I see it, I get excited like it's about to be something fun.
He wants to bring his golf clubs.
All right.
Just hang around. It'll be fun.
Actually, you'll get the agenda out probably by Thursday, so you'll have that. So, what time does it start? 9 a.m.
Thank you, Mr. Price, we appreciate that. Next, any new business? Come before the board tonight? Okay. Mr. Snow, I believe I heard we did not have need for a closed session. Is that accurate?
That's a good rumor, yes, sir.
I appreciate that. Well, this time then, unless there's some further discussion, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
And I make a motion that we adjourn.
Thank you, Commissioner Witherspoon. Thank you, Commissioner McCoy. All in favor, say aye. Aye. And all unanimous. Thank you. Appreciate everybody's input. Y'all have a good evening.
Well, Commissioner, right? Senator,